Hey everyone, LioConvoy here. We're finally at the third part of your questions concerning the ThunderCats franchise. Any other questions will now be answered in text instead of in a video. You guys have given me a total of 60 questions between these videos. So a special thanks to Retro Blasting once again for signal boosting the initial call for these questions. Let's get started. Michael Gordon asks, how did Earl Hyman come to be cast on the show? It doesn't appear as though he did voiceover work before or after ThunderCats. What was his opinion of the show? I'm not sure how Earl came upon the audition or anything like that, but I can tell you Earl did a bit of voice acting during and after ThunderCats. But he seemed to prefer live action acting considering that's how he was trained. As far as his opinions of the show goes, I have no idea. I can't find any panels or interviews of him talking about it. Tim Studt asks, what boggles my mind is this, despite being human at one point in his existence, why was Mum-Ra's only weakness were his own reflection in Season 1 and holy items in Season 2? And for the 2011 series, why did they give him a weakness to sunlight like some kind of vampire? Which of course, from what I've learned, mummies in any kind of ancient culture that utilized mummification never had a weakness to begin with. Mum-Ra's weakness is due to the sheer amount of evil that Mum-Ra exudes. Keep in mind what he always says. This is something that shows on him physically and a reminder that his humanity has been stripped away and leaves only the decayed form he maintains. Of note is that the initial script for the Unholy Alliance details the reflection a bit more, and I've edited this screenshot to show you the original plan for it. It's unpleasant. As far as weaknesses to holy items go, he's an embodiment of evil, so that kind of makes sense. When it comes to the 2011 version, it seems that version of Mum-Ra is some sort of bat creature. We can see hints of this on his nose and obviously in the bat wings. Bats don't tend to do well in sunlight, and they're often shown to go hand in hand with vampires. Of note is the fact that Mum-Ra is a creature of darkness, so light isn't going to do him any favors. Master Painter 72 asks, if Cheetara and the Flash had a race, which one would you put your money on? Barring any odd circumstances that would require the Sword of Omens to overpower her, my money would be on the Flash. Cheetara's only stated speed is 120 miles an hour. The Flash can literally react in under an attosecond and run faster than light. DJ Kitbash asks, in Exodus, do you think Jagas' insistence on sacrificing himself had anything to do with his guilt for what he did with the Sword of Plundar? Have you ever thought about it? And thanks for the detailed ThunderCats content. I don't think Jaga knew in Exodus why the planet was destructing, so I doubt there was any guilt there. Generally, throwing a sword into the core of a planet wouldn't lead to the eventuality of a planetary destruction. And you're welcome. Mark Baker asks, for clarification, did Rankin Boss also use another studio named Topcraft, or was Topcraft renamed Pacific Animation later on? Topcraft split into two studios in the 80s. One part later became Studio Ghibli, and the other half became Pacific Animation Corporation. Knuckles asks, why is ThunderCats compared and contrasted a lot to the Masters of the Universe? Likely because on the surface they seem very similar. I detail the differences between them in another video that you may want to check out. Philip Gibson asks, would you believe that if Warner Brothers had been aware of the original series long before they bought it out from Rankin Boss that they'd hire a creative consultant to continually expand the lore? I think they bought it in '89, so I'm sure they knew about it. But it seems like Warner Brothers just acquires things just to do so. They don't look at stuff like this creatively. Wilson Tortosa asks, do you know who designed the original vintage toy vehicles and which vehicles are your favorite? Mine is the Thunder Tank. I don't know the name of the sculptor if that's what you're asking, but I also like the Thunder Tank the most. Blurred Words asks, I've got a few questions. What's the episode with King Arthur and Excalibur called? Did Mandora get an action figure? I'm one of the folks you spoke of that knew nothing of the series creator Ted Wolfe and Leonard Starr and Rankin Boss. I hope to see a video that explains the history of the ThunderCats creation and production. The episode name is Excalibur, and no, Mandora never got a figure, and I'm glad you look forward to that video. Jason Shively asks, I have a 3-part question about the comics, the original and 2011 series. Did the Dogs of War from the comics inspire Dobo and the dogs from the 2011 series? Part 2 is, did they ever think to have a backstory on who Mum-Ra was if Mum-Ra was the Egyptian pharaoh? And part 3, finally, where the heck is Quick Pick and Roar? My last question is, has anyone ever thought that Mandora and Cheetara are sisters in the original? Their voices are almost the same. Granted, the same voice actress is the same, but they sound so much alike to me it's not even funny. The crew for the 2011 show was asked a while ago, and the answer is no. Dogs of War didn't inspire Dobo. The Wildstorm comics had a story detailing Mum-Ra's past as an Egyptian sim priest named Wahanka, and the original UK comics detail him posing as a benevolent Egyptian ruler. But there's no origins listed for Mum-Ra. I don't watch Roar, so I have no clue. And to my knowledge, no one else thought they were sisters. You have to keep in mind that Lynn Lipton was the only voice actress on the series until the second season. They did the best they could. Richard Butler asks, okay, here are a few questions. You mentioned in the first video that 2 people have a copy of the original show Bible. Who are they? The author of Hear the Roar seems to have disappeared. Any idea where the guy is? Panthro is the most changed team member in 2011. Which version of him do you prefer? I'm not going to name them because they're not public figures like I am, and I'm not going to violate their privacy like that. David Crichton is the author of Roar, and it seems he's around on Facebook. I prefer the original Panthro. Missy Drip asks, I didn't get the chance to post my questions last time. As someone who grew up with the 2011 reboot, was there ever a toy line produced to promote the show to grab kids' attention? Or did they discontinue it just like the show? If there was a toy line, did it end up poorly like I've seen some reboot fans said it did? I never took their word or confirmation bias. I'm genuinely curious about this. Yes, Bandai of America produced a toy line for it in 2 scales, a 3 3/4 scale and a 6-inch scale. The toy line didn't do well due to poor design for the vehicles, flimsy playsets, and really poor distribution. The Terror of Death asks, I know they explained this in the 2011 show as a secondary fault from Mumra's ship crashing, but do they ever explain what happened to humanity in the original series or any of its expanded universe material? Also, could you please explain the connection between ThunderCats, Silverhawks, and Tiger Sharks? Also, I wanted to say thank you for all your videos. They bring me joy and excitement every time they show up in my sub box, so thank you for everything. What remains of humanity in the original show is split between the Warrior Maidens and the Guardians of the Great Oceanic Plug. The third Earth the ThunderCats are on is an Earth after 2 nuclear holocausts according to Leonard Starr. In concept, ThunderCats, Silverhawks, and Tiger Sharks were going to take place in either the same universe or displaced through time. A crossover was in pre-production phase with one promotional concept image, but that's as far as it got. And I'm really glad you enjoyed my videos. Jeff Jacobson asks, do you know why the short Snarf Butterfly Blues was not included in the Blu-ray release of the 2011 series? Was there some kind of legal issue preventing it from being included? Were the people making the Blu-ray simply not aware it existed? I honestly have no idea, but the fact that it wasn't included is pretty on course for that considering that Blu-ray had absolutely no special features that I know of. Dean Helper asks, were there any plans for a pyramid playset for Mumra? No, the Tomb playset alone was pretty massive, so a pyramid playset for the original line would have to be the same size as the USS Flag from G.I. Joe. Lazo Berglazo asks, questions 1. Why Lion-O and Panthro breathe in space? 2. Why Jaga disappears when he dies? For question 1, it's because there's an atmosphere in space for the ThunderCats universe. For question 2, Jaga disappeared because standards and practices wouldn't let dead bodies be shown in that way unless you were doing a movie. Epic 2007 asks, I had as much fun watching this second part as I did the first one. If the 1985 and 2011 ThunderCats ever met, how do you think they would interact? Not well, I'd imagine. The original series kind of dwarfs the 2011 one in power and stakes. And that's all your questions answered. I hope you all enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed putting it out. I'm almost at 3,000 subs, so I asked you guys what you would want for a special for it. And most of you were pretty clear on what you wanted. So that's what we're doing, a review of the 2011 series. I'll do it in 2 separate ways. One is a standalone series, and the other in comparison with the original show. I'll likely also delve into the toy line itself. Now, it won't be out for a bit, as there's some other things I want to cover first, and I need to rewatch the 2011 series so my memory is fresh on it. I hope you enjoyed this series and that you learned something you didn't know. I'd also like to note that I'm currently scanning and uploading the ThunderCats scripts I have for posterity and for cataloging, so feel free to check them out too in the description. I have one more question for you guys that will also be posted in the community tab when this video goes up. But outside of the 3,000 sub special, what would you like to tide you over? My personal top 10 ThunderCat episodes, or a video on the unreleased ThunderCat episode concepts from the original series? Special thanks to my patrons. If you want to support me, feel free to follow the link in the description or shoot me a Ko-Fi. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.